He walked into boardrooms barefoot. He preached about elevating the world's consciousness. He built a company worth $47 billion out of little more than office space and a story. His name was Adam Neumann. And for a brief, extraordinary moment, the entire business world believed in him. Then it all came apart. This is the story of WeWork, the greatest startup collapse in history. The concept behind WeWork was simple. Almost too simple. Take large office buildings. Lace them at wholesale prices. Divide them into smaller spaces. Rent those spaces to freelancers and startups. At a premium. It was, at its core, a real estate business. Nothing revolutionary. But Adam Neumann didn't sell it that way. Born in Israel in 1979, Neumann grew up restless and charismatic, raised partly on a kibbutz, moving constantly between wealth and poverty. When he arrived in New York in the mid-2000s, he tried and failed at several businesses. But in 2010, alongside his partner Miguel McKelvey, he opened the first WeWork location in downtown Manhattan. And something unexpected happened. People loved it. Not just for the desks and the Wi-Fi, but for the feeling. The kombucha on tap. The exposed brick walls. The sense that you were part of something. A community of builders. All chasing something bigger. Neumann understood something most landlords never did. People don't just rent space. They rent identity. By 2016, WeWork had spread across the world. And with every new city came a bigger story. WeWork wasn't a real estate company. Neumann insisted. It was a technology company. A community. A movement. He spoke about WeWork's mission: to elevate the world's consciousness. And somehow, in the strange era of Silicon Valley money and billion-dollar dreams, investors believed him. In 2017, SoftBank, the Japanese tech giant led by Masayoshi Son, invested $4.4 billion into WeWork. In a now legendary meeting, Son told Neumann, "In a fight, the crazy guy always wins," and handed him more monies than most countries spend on education in a year. By 2019, WeWork was the most valuable private startup in the United States, $47 billion. But behind the vision boards and the barefoot boardroom meetings, something was very wrong. In 2018, for every dollar WeWork earned, it spent two. Total losses $1.9 billion in a single year. And the business model itself was a trap. WeWork signed long-term leases, 15, 20 years, on expensive commercial real estate. but rented to customers on short, flexible month-to-month contracts. In any downturn, any moment businesses got nervous, customers could vanish overnight. But WeWork's obligations to landlords remained for 15 more years. This wasn't disruption. It was one of the oldest, most dangerous bets in business. And nobody stopped it. Because the story was too good. In 2019, WeWork needed more money. The company decided to go public, to list on the stock market, and raise billions from ordinary investors. This required something WeWork had never needed before: transparency. The IPO filing went public, and Wall Street was stunned, not just by the losses, but by what was buried inside. Adam Neumann had structured WeWork so that his shares carried 20 times the voting power of ordinary shareholders. He had personally trademarked the word "we," then sold that trademark back to his own company for $6 million. His wife sat on the committee that would choose his replacement if he ever left, and he had borrowed hundreds of millions from company investors, then used that money to buy buildings, which he leased back to WeWork. He was his own landlord, collecting rent from his own investors. The backlash was instant. WeWork's valuation collapsed. $47 billion to $30 to $20 to $10. The IPO was canceled, and Adam Neumann was forced out as CEO. His exit package, approximately $1.7 billion, for presiding over one of the most spectacular failures in startup history. Without Neumann's story to hold it together, WeWork unraveled quickly. Locations closed. 47,000 employees became thousands fewer. Workers who had believed in the mission, who had taken stock instead of salary, left with almost nothing. SoftBank wrote off most of its $10 billion investment as a loss. Masayoshi Son, the man who told Neumann, "The crazy guy always wins," called the investment foolish. In October 2023, WeWork filed for bankruptcy. A company once valued at $47 billion. Gone. The WeWork story is usually told as a story about one man's ego. And ego played a role. But the deeper lesson is different. Every investor who backed WeWork had access to the same basic mathematics. Revenue minus costs equals losses. They chose not to look because the story felt better than the numbers. This isn't unique to WeWork. It happens in every bubble, every cycle, every generation. Someone builds a story compelling enough to make cautious people forget to ask the obvious questions. How does this make money? Who is accountable? What happens when it goes wrong? The answers are almost always right there. We just have to be willing to look. Subscribe